is mighty sweet. Liberty sows its seed at Farpoint Farms.
Hey guys, it's Eric, owner of Farpoint Farms here in the mountains, North Carolina, and today, part 3, 4, whatever it is, of the FTA satellite setup, and that is this piece right here, which I've already gone ahead and installed, but I'm going to describe to you. This is a Stab brand, but it's a horizon to horizon mount, and that allows the dish to move across the arc. And I'll show you how that works right now. Take a look. So that's it in motion. So once you find the right angles, and there's a website I'm going to show a picture of here, and I'll put it in the link below, that tells you when you punch in your latitude and longitude. It's going to tell you exactly where to set your motor, exactly what you're going to set your dish elevation to, and then it's going to even tell you with magnetic changes where you want to point your due south to be, and then just some fine tuning to get it locked in. But once you've hit that one satellite, it is now locked into the arc, so I can go across the whole satellite arc and pick up, at least from my house anyway, even with tree cover and the fact that it's up on a hill there, I'm getting about 40 different satellites, which is pretty impressive. Now, not all these carry signals that are free to air, but they're out there, and it's kind of cool that you have access to it. So let's go inside, and I'll show you on the receiver side what you need to do to be able to lock in those signals and save those so you'll be able to use them when you need to. All right, so here we are. Now look, I'm using a Dimco FTA box. You can get some high-end ones. Robbie Strike has a lot of information on, I think it's an Edison 4K receiver, and there's a bunch of other really nice high-end receivers. But to be honest, for someone just getting started in the hobby or getting restarted in the hobby like I am, that's really not necessary. This Dimco cost $20 with free shipping on eBay, and it's working great. So this may not look exactly like what you end up with, but the process of finding these channels is pretty much the same. So the first thing you're going to want to do here, and I'm going to try to use the remote here, yeah. So you're going into satellite and you're going into installation, and what we're going to be doing here is we're entering in our coordinates, right? So I'm in the western hemisphere. Well, I'm sorry, I'm in the northern hemisphere, but I'm on the west side of the satellite grid. And then I'm entering in exact latitude and longitude angles for my property. And that allows the FTA box and the horizon-to-horizon mount motor to know exactly where I'm at and exactly where to go about finding the satellite arc, right? So we've done that, and then we have our satellite list, and you'll see here tons and tons of satellites. But you'll notice that a lot of the satellites will say LNB frequency 05150. Those ones there that start with that number there, those are C-band satellites, and this is a KU band receiver and dish, so I won't be entering those. But as you can see, I've added a bunch of KU band satellites, and there are a ton of them. I mean, look at all of these, right? So these are all different ones that I'm able to come up with. And the next thing I want to show you here is this right here, motor, and it'll either say disabled or it could say disk 1 or disk 1.2. Well, I'm using USALS, and that's Universal Satellite Allocation System, or Acquisition Station, I think it is. Anyway, it means that the computer inside that little receiver is so smart that it's able to know exactly the distance by giving those earlier measurements, that when I've locked into a certain satellite, let's say we're on 63 West right there, right? So I've programmed it in, it's found it, I've peaked and tuned it so it's perfectly getting a great signal, and now I want to move up one to C1 there, 65 West, right? Well, that is inside the box. It's going to do some math, and it's going to move you to exactly the right location to get that in the exact same quality, right? So in the old days, you had to manually program in each satellite, and this is a huge advancement in the last few years of satellite reception, is that it's able to know exactly where the next one is without any more peaking and tuning. It used to be, like I said, every one of these satellites you wanted to enter in, you had to manually find it, lock it in, save that positioning, and it took a lot of fine tuning, so it took a lot more effort to get it. So I've gone ahead and done that. Okay, and then when we go to antenna setup here, we have the satellite, and I can switch satellites here. If I go left or right, you can't hear the motor outside, but you'll see the signal quality and intensity drop out and then pick back up as it switches from dish to dish, right? And there it goes, it's picked back up, right? This number here, that's your LNB frequency. So if I was on a C-band satellite dish, it would read, in the 500 series. But right now, we're just going to leave that alone usually. Transponders. So satellites that are programmed into these boxes are going to show, they're going to have transponders already programmed into them, but occasionally something new pops up, so I always do a blind scan the first time I find a satellite. We have our power, again, unless you're doing something unique, you're going to leave that alone. And then these two here, Robbie Strike can better explain exactly how this works, but that is a switch, an electronic switch. You can put multiple satellite dishes in your yard, and he has several of them in his yard. So he can switch using one box between. You can add the switch to 1, 2, or 3 or whatever and switch between those. So he can maybe pick up a stationary satellite that he has tuned to, say, 99.2, and then he has another satellite dish that's tuned permanently to 101 or 103, and he can just have that as a switch. So I'm going to switch from disk to channel basically that way. In this setup that I have here, we're using a motor, and so you don't use those at all. Right, so I'll go ahead and back out of that. And then we have our blind scan, and I'm going to show you our blind scan right here. I'm going to go ahead and enter in there, and we're picking it's moving now across the arc. It's going back to 99.2 because that's the one that it was set on for the search. We can search for free to air, which is what you want. Obviously there's no way to decrypt or whatever you want to call it, stuff that they don't want you to see, but there are a lot of free to air programs that they're more than happy for you to watch, and they're just up there, they're just not commonly known. So here you would go to that, and you can either go to a blind scan, which is what I do when I first get to a satellite, or a preset scan. That's where it knows, this has already got software loaded in it that knows what Galaxy 16 is supposed to have on it as far as what transponders are supposed to be active and what symbol rates and whatnot, and so you could do it that way as well. So those are your two choices, and then you would just hit enter, and now let's hit enter and see what we can find. So we're going through the blind scan right now. You can see the found transponders and new transponders. Those are indicators that you have found the satellite you're looking for. If it says found transponders, well, that means that the box already is aware that those transponders should exist on that satellite. And on the right-hand side, it's showing new transponders, and that can just be that they decided to transmit on another frequency, or it could mean a variety of things. Could mean you're on the wrong satellite. So we'll find out when it gets done with this, and it does take some time. Then it goes through and looks at each one of those transponders that it located and sees if there's any free-to-air signals, that being video or audio. So we'll let that finish up, and I'll show you what happens next. All right, so as it finishes up, now it's done. It took about 5 minutes to communicate with the satellite, ask it about all its transponders, and now it's going to go through, and there you go. You can see it's starting to find channels and add channels. This is the moment of truth if you are scanning the skies, because now we can find out. I can cross-reference with that LYNGSAT website to see if I am on the correct satellite. And it's already scrolled past it, but if you saw earlier, it did show Cozy TV, and that satellite listing is for the satellite that I'm on, SES, let's say 103 West. So it'll continue to go through here. You can find radio stations and video feeds, and it'll list them here and put them into the guide, really. So that's how that works. There we go. There's, wow, look at that. WRAL FM 101.5 is broadcasting, microspace, whatever that is. So we have some audio and some video on this satellite. That's kind of cool to see. Looks like NBC's main high definition feed is in the clear currently, Eastern and Central. Those occasional channels, those are ones that people are using for like live feeds. So I bet you right now with all the weird stuff going on in the world, there's probably plenty of live feeds, which might be interesting to see unedited and unfiltered, because, you know, they do tend to manipulate these things when you actually see the edited version on the news. So this gives you an opportunity to see what's really happening. So this is really cool. When this thing is done, it stores all that, and I'll go through some of those feeds real quick. I don't really want to show too much because obviously copyright issues here on the channel. We don't want any trouble there. But that pretty much describes it. If you are off a satellite or 2 or 20,
you're going to have to make some more adjustments out there on the dish. And of course, if you wanted to add a dish mover, well, then you can just switch from dish to dish at will. But the one I'm looking for is actually, well, one of the I wanted to check out was on this, and then the one that I'm actually looking for is right next to it. So there you go. TV channels, 43 television stations for free on this satellite, and 6 radio stations. So let's roll through just real quick. I don't want to spend too much time because of the issues with copyright, but we'll click on out back to the main page here, and there we go. We have stations, right? We've got lots of stations. Pretty awesome. NGK World. So we're getting feeds from all over. That looks like some reruns. Here's Mountain Time. Okay, they're not transmitting. Let's see about West. So West Coast. Occasional. These would be our live feeds again. And there's Cozy. So there's the master feed for Cozy TV if you're into that. So there's a lot of really cool stuff out here, and it's just available, you know, pretty much to grab. I'm not using any kind of illegal equipment. This is just, like I said, that box there, that Dayco box is actually just a $20 El Cheapo off of eBay. So I guess that'll wrap it up. This is the antenna system, but I will just show you the actual channel I was looking for, and then I will wrap this video up. If you like the video, please like and subscribe, because there'll be more like it. And I'll see you next time. Take care.
There's always something that needs a little fixing on Farpoint Farms. Freedom is mighty sweet.